Good Monday morning, Mount Olive Church. We want to ask you at this time to join us for devotion, and we'll go to John 15 and 13. John 15 and 13 for this Monday morning devotion, this Memorial Day devotion. So, as we look at the context, which is always very important, context, as you learn how to prepare sermons and to teach the Word, the context of this chapter, my Scofield Bible says, spoken on the way to the Garden of Gethsemane. He's washed the disciples' feet. They've taken the Lord's Supper, and now it's the night before he goes to the cross, and they're on their way to the Garden of Gethsemane. Now that puts some power behind these words. So you imagine Jesus and his disciples walking to the Garden of Gethsemane the night before he's crucified, or the night that he's arrested. Uh, Read these words with me in verse 12, 13, and 14. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love, here's our key verse, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And ye are my friends, if you do whatsoever I command you. So we see that the discussion here is his commandment for them to love one another, to love others. And his example is, or his instruction is to love like I've loved you. And the illustration is something that's not happened yet. It is the cross of Calvary. As he looks at them, knowing he's going to the cross, and he says, listen, there's no greater love than a man would lay down his life for his friends. And he says, you know what, you're my friends if you do whatever I command you. I love to be a friend of Jesus. Sometimes it's not always easy to keep those commandments, but first and foremost, the commandment to be called to surrender our life to him and to love him as best we can. So I want to be a friend of Jesus. So let's focus on this verse. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And this is Memorial Day, and we talked yesterday about the power of remembering. And I just want to restate part of the sermon yesterday that came from a story from Billy Graham. He says, you know, you can visit many battlefields and memorials, and he talked about a time when President Eisenhower visited the battlefield of Valley Forge. As he was walking from one memorial to, or one historic spot to another, President Eisenhower stopped and said, this is where they got it for us. Now, what he means is the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. The many people who put on that uniform, went to the front lines of the battle, and died so that we could live in freedom. And so Billy Graham tells a story about being in Korea and seeing an army young man who's a military personnel. He said his spine had been torn away by a shell blast the night before, and he laid there. Couldn't change his position. He laid on his belly. The doctor told Billy Graham that if he did live, he would spend the rest of his life on his stomach. They've patched him up. Billy Graham's holding his cold, perspiring hands. He's speaking words of comfort. And the young man looked up to him and said, it was worth it if it will keep America free. Again, this is where they got it for us. Today we honor the memory and the work of those who have served this great country. And there's great power in remembering that. No greater love is there than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. Not just in the military, but on the greatest battlefield in the history of mankind. The Son of God, Jesus Christ, a young man in the army of the Lord, the general of the heavenly host. He went to the cross of Calvary and he battled the power of sin, the habit of sin, the consequence of sin, the forces of evil, the works of darkness. And it was there that the light of God would shine through him as he would say, it is finished. And then on that third and appointed day, he would rise victorious, now and forevermore. And he did that because of love. And I'm not going to contradict Scripture here, but again, greater love hath no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. But what about if we're not friends? What's that say in Romans 10 and 13? Or 10 and, I'm sorry, Romans 5 and 8, part of the gospel. What's it say? But God commended his love toward us that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. So we take it a step higher. Christ died for us even when we were sinners, even when we were rebels and not friends. What a great love that is. Christ died for me. Christ died for you. That's the illustration. So now he says, love each other as I have loved you. If you are my friends, if you do this that I've commanded you to love one another. Memorial Day, no greater love than a man laid down his life for his friend. The application, let us love, be like Christ. Have a great Memorial Day.